Celebrating 49 years on the air, award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, for farmers, the heat is on in more ways than one. Plus, another angle, seafood could be going up as well thanks to world tension and higher diesel prices. In southern gardening, the heat is on for summer salvias too, but for them, it's a good thing. And in our feature, the 2026 Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. As if they haven't already had plenty to deal with over the decades, yet another challenge for farmers as they mount up for another planting season. Fertilizer prices higher to the point where some of them are thinking of cutting back. David Miller has more.
On the cost side of things, we already had very high costs, and that's been our big problem. We've been under this cost squeeze for several years. But now with fertilizer prices rising, with the uncertainty, and also fuel prices rising, that creates additional concern. Now,
Grant Kimberly is the Senior Director of Market Development for the Iowa Soybean Association. Those uncertainties he's talking about include a war with Iran that is starting its 5th week. The pressure is adding to already expensive inputs, land, labor, and capital.
Now, fortunately, most farmers probably had some of these costs locked in earlier this year, mostly. But if this lasts longer, this could have an impact. And there's going to be some areas where maybe these costs weren't locked in. So just going to depend on individual situations and where you're located at.
The Iowa Soybean Association, funded in part by checkoff dollars, advocates for Iowa's 37,000 soybean producers facing one of the toughest spring planting seasons on record. Kimberly is one of those producers. He also grows corn in the state that produces the second largest output of soybeans.
No, we're still in a very challenging economic environment. Last year was probably the worst it's been in quite a while. This year, it looked like we were starting to turn the corner and come out of that a little bit, but now you have the other uncertainties on the cost side of things.
The Strait of Hormuz, the pathway for 20% of the world's oil, 50% of its nitrogen, and 40% of its phosphorus, has been too dangerous to traverse for more than a month. Over the course of the war, the price for anhydrous is now 25% higher, and urea is 40% higher than a month ago. The increased cost may have some farmers switching crops. The higher price might also have some producers cutting back on inputs that could cause reduced yields. Kimberly doesn't think that will be a problem here at home.
I think it's going to be more pronounced in other parts of the world than it is here in the U.S. because we're a little bit more self-sufficient on some of these things, and we're a little bit earlier in our planning production cycle window than they might be. But if this would continue on longer and those cost impacts would continue longer, places like South America might see impacts.
A little relief may come from recent changes to the renewable fuel standard that increased the annual production of biodiesel and renewable diesel to more than 5 billion gallons annually, an increase of more than 60%. Kimberly is also the executive director of the Iowa Biodiesel Board.
Once we get the final rule of the 45Z biofuel production tax credit program, it's another piece of the puzzle. Once that's finished, that'll help, I think, further incentivize additional production of domestic biofuel feedstocks and make more available to the marketplace.
The National Corn Growers Association and other farm groups are urging the Department of Commerce and the Federal Trade Commission to revoke tariffs on fertilizer phosphates they say are causing prices to spike.
Needless to say, oil prices are higher, causing gas and diesel prices to soar, at least for the time being. Those diesel increases are spending much in the food chain higher as well, including seafood. Reporter Jacob Murphy has that story.
We fuel up every single day, multiple times a day. price of diesel in Maine is exceeding the national average at this point. AAA says it's about $5.80 per gallon, but for those out on the water, they're eating those costs.
Well, just because fuel prices have doubled doesn't mean we can charge double for an oyster.
Kelly Punch is with Mere Oyster Company in Brunswick. On top of farming oysters, they offer tours for people to see what working in the industry is like. They refuel their boats every day, sometimes multiple times, as a day on the water can last 8 hours. They've considered switching to solar, but say the technology isn't quite ready yet for how long they need to run their engines.
Fuel is one of our biggest line items. It's right up there with labor.
And costs have trickled into other areas of their business, like the floating cages that grow oysters.
With fuel costs going up, so does plastic costs, and a lot of the floats are made of plastic.
Then fuel to deliver is also costly. All of it adds up, and Punch says they're used to the ups and downs that come with fuel and industry prices. What's making this particularly challenging is the fact that they can't predict when they will go back down, and they won't be able to absorb the costs forever.
Fish markets are feeling it, processors are feeling it, restaurants are feeling it. With the cost of our operations going up, eventually the cost of seafood will go up, the cost of all food will go up.
As of this broadcast, the average price for diesel in New England is $5.75 a gallon, an increase of about $2 a gallon since the beginning of the Iran war.
On the lighter side, we're about to turn the corner on temperatures, higher of course. One flower friendly when the heat is on, the salvia. Here's Eddie Smith with two that'll still be shining in the summer sun.
We're on location at the Flower Bed Nursery in Lumberton, Mississippi. And if you're looking for bold color and pollinator power for your southern landscape, you're going to love what we've found today. First up is Misty Salvia. This variety brings rich blue-purple blooms that really stand out in the garden. It has a naturally compact, well-branched habit, making it perfect for borders, containers, or mixed beds. Misty Salvia loves full sun, thrives in our southern heat, and once established, it's fairly drought tolerant. Even better, it's a magnet for butterflies and hummingbirds, which is always a bonus in my book. Another salvia, skyscraper orange salvia, is a showstopper. As the name suggests, this plant grows tall and upright, creating a strong vertical interest in the landscape. That vibrant orange color is hard to miss and pairs beautifully with blues, purples, and even chartreuse foliage. Skyscraper orange salvia is another sun lover that performs beautifully through the heat of summer and well into the fall. One of the things I really like is how these two salvias work together. The cool tones of Misty Salvia contrast perfectly with the fiery orange of Skyscraper Orange Salvia, giving you a dynamic, eye-catching combination. If you're ready to add long-lasting color, pollinator appeal, and reliable performance to your garden, check out Misty Salvia and Skyscraper Orange Salvia. I'm Eddie Smith. I look forward to seeing you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, the 2026 Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions. It's always a big story, and this year the numbers were bigger than ever. Well more than $500,000 raised in the sale. You'll also meet Julian Chavez, a hardworking young man absolutely bound for greatness. Trust us, you'll enjoy everything this young man has to say. The 2026 Dixie National is coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. believe that these are the keys to democracy and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe in my own work and in the opportunity I have to make my life useful to humanity. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families that I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. More about row crop acreage. Indeed, what's really going on? And a closer look at cattle. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then a cattle update. We take a look into what's driving that sector right now. And finally, in our row report, more fallout from the prospective plantings report. An MSU expert gives his thoughts. So, markets closed once more on the upswing. Both row crops and livestock split. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, live cattle, up nearly 8 cents, more than a 3% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, sugar, down about 3/4 cent, nearly a 5% decrease from the previous week. So it's been a little bit since we last looked into cattle. We'll have more soon, but for now, market analyst Chris Robinson says recent price rises could be a gift to sellers who may have missed the last one in the fall.
You know, it's interesting. You know, we had an $85 sell-off, and then we've clawed it all back. We're back to contract highs. We had a $40 sell-off in fat cattle. Now we're making new highs in the June cattle. So the market that everybody thought had been broken because of whatever, there's a million different reasons. It's all come back. At the end of the day, we don't have the supply that we need. The packers. The math is, they're back in the black. The cash market, although it had a little weakness, continues to show up. And I think the one disconnect that I was surprised of, and I'll tell you, we had a 10% correction in the stock market, roughly. And that we had a little bit of a sell-off in the cattle along with it. But cattle has now almost disconnected from the stock market. This last 2 or 3 days, it's been amazing to see the strength. And I'm interested to see where it's going to continue to go. But we've been through this before, where it gets very, very, we're at all-time highs. When the correction comes, it's very, very severe. So this is a kind of a mulligan for everybody. If you feel you missed the high before the last break, this is a gift. I even think that if the spot corn stays roughly where it is right now, that's not going to be an issue. I think as long as the packers are continue to be in the black and that market holds in there, the big question is this. You led in with talking about, are we going to get a recession? If we have, expensive gasoline for months and months and months, will people say, you know what, I'm done paying for expensive beef? We've been hearing that narrative for 3 or 4 years now. When is the consumer going to say, no more, no more? They keep showing up. So that's been, I think, surprised a lot of people. I would continue to watch that as well. Is the consumer going to continue to pay up for beef if this continues to go on for, another month or 2 or 3?
Last week, we talked about the prospective plantings report released by the USDA and the effects it had on the markets. This week, we continue that discussion with MSU Extension economist Dr. Will Maples. He says that it appears Mississippi is leaning in the same direction as the rest of the nation.
So with the prospective planting report this year we got, it kind of tracked the directions we thought it would on most of the commodities. Corn down to 95 a little over 95 million acres. Soybeans up to 84.7 million acres. And that was expected. You know, we had that record corn crop last year. Supplies have been weighing down on this market. Corn acres had to drop. They had to be pulled back. There was some questions around it. Some people thought that 95 million number is still a little high for corn acres. There's a little bit with this uncertainty around fertilizer cost right now due to the Iran war situation that's really thrown the nitrogen market into a tailspin here in the last few weeks. In Mississippi, we've actually got all our corn planted already for the most part across the state. We've had good weather through March, and everybody that wanted planted corn got their corn planted already. So we're really off to an early start here. But Midwest, that's really going to drive where the acres are, and as we kind of see there. Soybean number, it had come up. That's kind of we expected. Profitability of soybeans versus corn coming through the winter has favored soybeans. That 84.7 million acres is a good number, I think. That's kind of about where I had expected it. But so, you know, those were the two big crops we really look at, especially here in Mississippi, and they went the directions we thought they would. Cotton market has rallied here over the past month. We're up, the December contract's up at 75 cents now. So after about 3 years, we're finally seeing some life into the cotton market. So that might pull in some more acres going forward. So we get plantings going across the southern part of the U.S., but plantings are down, but it'll be interesting to see where we end up in June. So we saw a similar pattern. We pulled corn acres back about over 30% here in Mississippi. We planted a record number of acres last year of corn in the state, 930,000. We have pulled that. It's going to be 30% lower from this report, and we've bumped up our soybean acres. So last year we planted 1.8 million acres of soybeans. We're finally back up over 2 million acres. That's kind of where Mississippi usually plants in terms of soybeans. With the tariff situation and so forth. So we talked about a lot last year. We pulled acres back in Mississippi for soybeans a good bit. So same pattern, we are planting more soybeans and less corn in the state of Mississippi, just like nationally.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. And now in this week's feature, a look back at this year's Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions. There are many key players in the success of the sale, but one standout is the young man you're about to meet. He's been through a lot for a 17-year-old, but he's come through it all with flying colors.
1100, I got 10 here, you got to be 1100.
For 57 years, the Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions has been more than just an auction. It's the culmination of a year's worth of grit, sweat, and determination. This year, more than 1,150 young people brought nearly 1,800 animals to Jackson, competing for a spot in a sale that raised nearly $580,000.
What a great opportunity it is to come here and celebrate our youth, both our 4-H and our FFA kids. Now, they've worked this whole year tirelessly raising animals, which instills such a good sense of responsibility. They worked their way through the local ranks, the district ranks, to get here to the Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions.
While the records were shattered, including a $13,500 lamb and a $25,000 goat, even more value lies in the $1.4 million in scholarships the sale has provided over time, along with the youth programs that feed into the sale.
And there's a lot of discussion in our state all the time about workforce development, workforce development, workforce development. I want you to know there's no better workforce development program in the state of Mississippi than 4-H and FFA. Can we give them another great big hand? Thank you for all you do.
Among the 41 scholarship recipients this year is a young man whose story defines resilience. Julian Chavez, a homeschooled senior from Lincoln County, was awarded the $2,500 Premier Exhibitor Scholarship, a triathlon of skill, knowledge, and persistence.
Julian has been one of my 4-H'ers for the entire time that I've been an extension agent in Lincoln County. He started when he was a clover bud, and he'll be graduating high school this year. He has shown a variety of species, beef, sheep, goats. So he's really explored all the avenues. He's also involved in our educational contests, judging, premier exhibitor, and things of that nature. So it's been a pleasure working with Julian.
Julian's path hasn't been easy. Raised by his grandparents since age 4, he's faced hardships that might have sidelined others. But under the guidance of Marty and Juanita Tripp, he forged an approach to life that's now his signature. What have they taught him?
My work ethic, for sure. My grandfather used to work for an oil company, and he taught me that no matter where you go, you always put 120% in. And my grandmother has been real adamant on making sure that I do it. So my grandmother has definitely been the driving force on making sure that I have been really good about my work ethic. But my grandfather, he's the one who set the foundation.
Leadership comes naturally to Julian, who serves as a leader for both the Brahmin Associations and Mississippi 4-H. Yet he remains grounded by a philosophy of humility and faith.
Humility plays a huge part in everything you do. I know people who have won big and they're very humble about it, but I've also known people who have won small and they're very arrogant about it. And I've personally been able to win at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and you know, I don't like to bring it up. I just, you know, I'm very proud of the moment, but I try not to brag about it, because if you brag about something, that's, you know, the old saying, pride cometh before the fall. So I try to stay away from that fall as much as I possibly can.
Have you had pretty good luck at that? That's a tough one for a lot of people.
I'm human, sir, so I've fallen a couple of times, but you know what it says in the Bible, a righteous man falleth 7 but gets up 8. And I might be wrong on the numbers, but you know, it's just about getting up and finding back.
That resilience was tested when he lost a prize calf to a hunter's accident. Instead of bitterness, Julian chose optimism.
I have a little bit of a different view than some people, but I'm an optimist. I love to see the good things in everything. It's very few times where I get, you know, just, I get real negative, and that's not something that's often for me, but I love to see the good things. And sometimes it's hard. It is hard to see the positive side of things, but when you do, that's all you got to do and you will be happy. All you got to do is find what a part of what you're doing drives you and makes you happy, and you'll find it.
Julian's story is a standout, but he is part of a larger movement of young leaders finding their voices in the barn.
I've grown up in 4-H, and for me, it all started in the livestock barn. Showing livestock taught me responsibility, hard work, and perseverance. But 4-H gave me so much more than just skills in the show ring. It gave me confidence, leadership, and a place where I truly belong.
This year, I am able to exhibit 2 animals in the Sale of Junior Champions, and I can truly not express what that means to me. But honestly, it means that the countless hours that me and my family have spent in the barn, working and honestly arguing most times, but just spending that time together, growing together, learning more about our stock and how to be better people has all paid off.
Julian has become very outgoing, very responsible, and he's really fell into that leadership role and just taken that on within the county. A lot of our kids look up to Julian and they want to mimic Julian, be like Julian, and so he's really kind of set that standard within our county, and that's been a lot of fun to watch him grow from being a junior 4-H'er to the senior 4-H'er that they're all looking up to.
This fall, Julian heads to Mississippi State University to study animal and dairy sciences. Whether he becomes a businessman or a rancher, his foundation is unshakable.
Don't be afraid to try something new. If I didn't try sheep, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have been able to win this, and I wouldn't be as blessed as I am today. I wanted to, but I was scared to try a lot of new things. I've been in a lot of competitions, and I've been able to win some of those competitions, but all you got to do, you don't know what'll happen. You try it, and you could very well win it.
Myself included, I grew up showing livestock, and now I'm a member of the Sale of Champions Committee, and I know how much goes into making events like this possible. And I can tell you at firsthand, the youth that we're going to support and celebrate today are some of the most dedicated, hardworking, biggest leaders. And at Southern Ag Credit, that's why we invest in young people because we know that that is the future leaders of our ag industry.
To date, the Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions has generated over $10.6 million. But as Julian Chavez proves, the real investment is in the character of the young people themselves.
Our mission is to promote the youth in our state and support their goals for further education in hopes of ultimately retaining them in the workforce in Mississippi. You know, this program, yes, the animals are the product, but the real product is the people. That's the real, genuine Mississippi product that we are wanting to create.
Our job is to make sure that our students not only care for their livestock, but they're learning life lessons. So we teach them in the classroom, but we're really teaching them life skills that we need them to use in the future. So whether that is showing up when it's hard, making sure you're on time, caring for something that depends upon you, that's our whole goal.
So, $11,000, F1, 11,000.
Congratulations again to Julian Chavez. Well, next week they call her Miss Ruby, and they call her an inspiration.
In Lee County, Mississippi, she's the state's longest-serving 4-H volunteer. Farm Week's Jonah Holland, a longtime 4-H'er himself, goes one-on-one with the woman everyone says is everything a 4-H leader should be, and who created a museum with memories she's been collecting for 58 years.
Miss Ruby, an up-close encore next time right here on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.